Good evening. My name is Dan Wolfel. I'm the chairman for the town of Sevastopol. We welcome you to give your input on the topic regarding Schauer Park. A couple of things just as housekeeping. I'll go through just a very brief history. After that, I will introduce Ken, who will take you through the presentation. After the presentation, there'll be an opportunity for all of you to ask whatever questions you might like. We would ask that you use the podium. This is being taped for other people that may not be able to make it tonight and have interest, so we would appreciate that. We'd also ask that you identify yourself, name, address, so we know who and where you're from. Stakeholders, as you can see from the front row and this row, there's approximately 18 of us that have been involved in this project going back a year, maybe more, trying to deal with this problem. We've invited all the stakeholders here tonight. They'll introduce themselves individually if they are asked to speak or respond. I won't spend a half hour introducing all of them, but there are people from Door County government. We have supervisors, we have sheriff's deputies, we have highway commissioners, park people, we have people from Whitefish Bay Dune State Park, and we also have the people from the board from Jacksonport. So there'll all be an opportunity to try and address your questions. The idea is to get your input. The Town Board of Sevastopol will have this on our agenda for next week, Monday, to make a decision on where we go based on the input we have here tonight. So without that, let me just, as a quickie, let me just kind of recap how we got here. And I might be wrong on a date because there's a lot of printed information out there, but I'm going to say that Whitefish Bay Dune State Park was created in the mid-'60s. That's as close as I can get to actual. The Sevastopol town had a town park inside the new state park, and this area was sold to the DNR in 1981. And just for a point of reference, this particular park that the town had is now known as the Dog Beach area, all right? There were multiple roads going into Whitefish Bay Dune State Park, and virtually all of them were surrendered to the DNR as part of the multiple acquisitions, with the exception of the infamous and now famous Schauer Road. As you know, from reading the various articles, Schauer Road belongs to the town of Sevastopol from the intersection of WD all the way up to the town line in Jacksonport. So it services Cape Point County Park, the busiest park in the county by far in terms of just raw numbers, as well as both sides of Whitefish Bay Dune State Park. It was, as I said, the only road that wasn't transferred. The last time that road was paved was in 2014. And we worked with the DNR, the county, and numerous agencies in an effort to widen it. But at that time, we were limited to 22 feet in width, and we had approximately a 1-foot shoulder. So as a result of that narrow road, what you basically see is a narrow, winding road, which has obstacles for people on bicycles or pedestrians, or vehicles that may incur damage as they slide off the edge of the pavement or the pavement breaks up. So the concern over vehicles and injuries to bike riders and other users have prompted this conversation that we started over a year ago. But probably the single most difficult situation we've had to deal with is the illegal parking that has happened on the road into the park, which limits emergency vehicle access. And as you all know, since you live here, there have been numerous situations where we have needed emergency access to the park for kayakers, injured people, etc. So it plays a key role in our decision on where we're going to go. So with that as a backdrop, I'd like to introduce Ken Pavich, who's the Door County Administrator, and ask him to take you through the presentation, and then we'll go to Q&A. Okay?
Sure. Can you hear me all right? All right. So you guys going to switch the screen so they can see?
All right.
All right. So let's dive in. Again, thank you. Again, my name is Ken Pavich. I'm the County Administrator. I'd like just to preface this to say that this is I'm kind of the one got elected to do the presentation, but it actually represents the work of the entire group. So by all means, I'm not taking any credit for all the work. I'm just a participant in putting it all together. So really, just to cover the purpose, was kind of outlined. I'll kind of restate it again as I actually talk about the issues related to it. I'll go into a little more detail about some of those issues. I'll talk about the options that we did look at and what the ones that we're kind of leaning towards. And obviously, we're looking to get input. And then obviously, we'll give some input on some observations on how we'll try to move forward with the project. Just for background, we're talking about the project area as outlined by Dan. Again, we're looking at, I was looking for the pointer. Okay. So again, we're looking at, again, the entrance to mainly from the park area all the way up to the northern part of Schauer Road as it goes into Jacksonport. What we consider the key segments as part of the issues that we're identifying is obviously the entry point or the intersection of the entrance to the park, along with the entrance onto Schauer Road, just in terms of the alignments of the intersection and how they're designed. And then as you come in, we're looking at the primary segment. I'll show you another map in the next slide in terms of what we consider the first eastern portion of the section. And then we call it the modification point. You'll see that in another segment. And then we're talking about the end point or the northern part of Schauer Road as it goes into Jacksonport. Again, on the next slide, just to summarize the stakeholders, I think Dan covered that well, so I will not cover that again. But again, in our estimation, again, we have both towns, the state park, the county door, and of course, the public. And that's why we're here tonight. We're looking to get your input. And again, the presentation is representation of the work of all these stakeholders. So just really quickly in terms of this covering some of the key issues. Again, I think Dan did a nice job in some of the summary, but I'll just kind of go through. Again, some of the issues that have been identified, obviously from the town, is that it is a town road versus a county facility. But again, it provides access to one of the busiest parks and has one of the highest traffic counts in the county for a town road. Again, the road in general, as Dan had mentioned, was redesigned or repaved. But again, when that was done, it was not actually designed to handle the amount of traffic that it's actually experiencing. Again, also the intersection has a poor design and does not have proper alignments. And obviously the parking, as identified, has been a significant issue. From Jacksonport's standpoint, again, it provides direct access. But again, it's kind of like a hidden direct access to the park. And also that road is not designed to handle the traffic or the flow that's going into there. In fact, a lot of people sometimes get confused going down that road and sometimes try to turn around, and they're turning around in the residential driveways in terms of that. And I know it's difficult for service vehicles to get down there, garbage collection and so forth in terms of being able to turn around. Again, some of the issues just identified by the state park, obviously it cuts through the park itself. Again, obviously any road probably would, but the design and the alignment is not ideal in terms of what their master plan is for the park. Again, not designed to handle the amount of traffic. Also, from their perspective, that intersection is poorly designed even for the entrance into their park. And also parking creates issues for individuals because they're not only going to the Cave Point, but they're also accessing trails just from the road and parking on that section. And then likewise, the northern end is not really an official entrance to the park, so it's just an access point that's uncontrolled for them. And then lastly, obviously from the county, we've had issues for multiple years just in terms of individuals parking on that. We get a significant number of calls, not only just for parking, but for people accessing the corridor through that. Likewise, it's been an issue for us for emergency vehicles. As you can imagine, not only do we have emergency calls for individuals that are actually using the park, but obviously there's, as you're aware, there's a number of issues with people getting calls from kayaks or individuals swimming or when they jump off and that type of thing. So for us to get access for emergency vehicles has always been an issue for us. In terms of enforcement, it's a very difficult area for us to enforce because you can imagine by the time we get a call and we get a unit over there, either the individuals are gone or we could do the tickets, but it's a one-time thing. And again, and now we're taking a resource for, during the summer where we have probably 200,000 people in the county doing parking enforcement versus all the other calls that we're getting at the time for other incidents within the county. Again, likewise, the intersection is not designed. And again, the turnaround for Jacksonport's poorly designed. And again, from this perspective, I think this applies to all. There's really not good access for walking or biking on Schauer Road itself. So if we look at the existing corridor, again, when we go through this analysis, we went through the exercise of trying to identify all the options, and we try to narrow those down. So I guess really under option one, we looked at using that existing corridor. And obviously, if you look at the pros and the cons, the corridor does already exist, right? It's there. We just need to go through and widen it to make it more accessible or more properly designed. With that corridor, though, it still has a lot of curves, and it's still difficult to actually maximize the design of that road corridor. Obviously, if we use the existing road corridor, we'd have a reduced environmental impact, even though we'd still have to widen the road. In terms of the cons, it's not ideal, both in terms of length, as you'll see coming up in the other design, and also the long-term goals for the park and how they're hoping to intend the use of the park long-term. Also with this option, when we get to the cost, you'll see that the cost of this design is very similar to the new road, which we think is the optimal design. If we then look at what we consider a new corridor, which I will show you, what we're looking at in terms of pros is obviously as we're working with all the stakeholders, we're hoping to do a swap with the DNR in terms of being able to provide the corridor, and then we'd be vacating the old segments of Schauer Road back to the DNR. So in essence, hopefully it would be a win-win situation in terms of the land swap. Those old corridors for Schauer Road could be used for public trails, both for biking and for hiking. The new road would also be shorter in terms of long-term maintenance, and the county would be able to enhance the parking at the north end of Cape Point as part of this design. Obviously, the cons is that new segment must be cleared. The one thing that we did do before we even got to this point, though, is that corridor has been analyzed for both all species and archaeological sites, so it's all been cleared in terms of that. So we know that there's no impact that way with this new corridor being considered. Obviously, if you'll see at the end, there will be a little bit higher cost for this option. And obviously, since we are putting in a new road in a new segment, obviously there's an environmental impact to that. So we're very cognizant of that, but we're also trying to minimize that impact overall. So let's just take a look at a map, and we'll just talk about those segments that we're talking about. I kind of have those circled. Again, we have the intersection of area of concern. Then we have what we call that first segment of Schauer Road, where we're looking at doing a widening of that segment. And then what we call it's kind of a decision point. Either we go with that existing corridor down the existing Schauer Road, or you can see in yellow, you can see that road is now straightened out and it has a smooth curve going into the county park. You will see that the design of the road actually enters the county park. It's a little bit hard to see in the screen, but if you look at the map itself, you'll see the green outline for the county park. So we're trying to get the road into the county park as soon as possible in terms of our design. And that minimizes the overall impact and the amount of land needed from the DNR. So again, in terms of those, we're looking at the options in terms of what needs to be done at each one of those areas. So if I go through this, the first one would be the intersection. Again, ultimately, the perfect design would have all four segments lining up in a design. The amount of distance between them is pretty great to make that happen. So what our initial recommendation would be is to do the alignment that you'll see in the gray and also shown on the screen in the yellow in terms of the alignment. So you still end up with two, I guess, T intersections, but those T intersections are much better in terms of alignment and how you can see. And again, that would be the improvement to that corridor, and it'd be much cleaner for the traveler to understand which road they are on in terms of which way they're going. I think right now there's a lot of confusion on which way they go with all those intersection and turning movements, so I think there's just a lot of confusion there, and you'll see people actually pull into like Cape Point, they'll use that triangle, turn around, and then they go in Whitefish or turn around. So this whole thing would change that alignment and make it much more safer. The next segment would be, in essence, from that intersection in what we're calling the point to where we'd actually start the new construction of the road. The idea for this area, the segment, would again, you'll see the road configuration. Obviously, you can't see the actual detail of the road segments in there, but the road would be wide enough for both traffic and also bike lanes into that segment. So coming into there, you'd have full public access, and it'd be safe for bikers to come in. And then once they got to the eastern portion where the old Schauer corridor is going to the south, that's where the bikers would then be diverted onto the path of Old Schauer Road, which would be, again, the biking lane for individuals to then access the park. And that road would exist, or that corridor would exist, going all the way to Cape Point, and it actually extending all the way up to the northern end of the park. So this to be clear, what our intention was when we were talking would be that we'd actually vacate Schauer Road all the way through from that inflection point all the way up to Jacksonport would all be vacated. Okay? Then if we go to that next segment, here's a blown up of the actual design of the corridor if you're interested in that. But you'll see the actual lanes. We have two 11-foot lanes for travel, and then we have the bike lane, and then we have a larger shoulder as well. So it meets the county standards in terms of design, and it's a much safer corridor in terms of how the traffic would access and use that corridor. And again, it provides an opportunity for the bikers to be outside of the traffic and safe for them to move on and get to that bike lane. Then moving on, I'm looking at that next segment where the new road would be. Again, in this segment of road, we're looking at, again, if you look at the screen, you're seeing the old portion of the road would be converted to a bike path, bike/pedestrian path, just to be clear. And then I go to the next slide, you can actually see the design of this corridor. Again, we have the 11-foot lanes along with the 2-foot corridors. Okay? Then the one item that we have talked about throughout all the meetings too is what to do with that northern part of the park. And again, the best thing that we can do is try to figure out a way to get vehicles that they can turn around safely. And again, one of the things that have been proposed is putting a cul-de-sac in essence at the end. Again, it'd be an effort where you'll see that. What we're trying to do is limit the impact onto the state park, but also provide the turnaround without impacting residential properties and having to acquire, public property. Not public, but residential property, sorry. But again, so what we're trying to do is minimize the amount of land that we can take, but we also want it to be a safe turnaround for traffic and also for maintenance vehicles, plows, garbage collection, also emergency vehicles. But again, in working with the consultant, they just did a conceptual design. This is definitely not final, but again, it's very similar to the one on Cottage Row in Fish Creek. If you're familiar with that, it has a nice loop, but there's a nice island in the middle, and it's designed very nicely. So that would be the kind of the concept there. Again, just as a note, that portion of Schauer Road in the state park would be vacated, right? So coming south, you'd get to that cul-de-sac, you could not go further south. So I know there's been questions even before the meeting in terms of, well, are we actually focusing all the traffic then to the other entrance? And yes, we are. I mean, that was part of the design, and actually, if you look at, probably most of the traffic is actually accessing the park through that corridor. And again, with designing it as a county road and making it wider, it actually is a safer corridor now for the traffic to actually go in that direction. So again, the idea would be is that you design it to a county standard, and then the request would be from the town to ask the county to take that over as a county road. So, and that's why it has to be built to county standards, being able to handle both the traffic, both in terms of weight, but also traffic. So obviously, one of the things is, well, what are the costs? So we can kind of go through that. Obviously, we looked at the options. Obviously, the one option is, well, let's just leave it as a town road, and let's just widen it. So if we did that, we would still like to fix the entrance. So actually, that $19,000 should also be in the top for the entrance. But what you have to do is you have to redesign that existing road section. And we also have a contingency. So you're looking at, if I throw that $19,000, you're looking at approximately $200,000 for it to, I guess, be redesigned, but leave it as a town road. So that is an option. But again, from our working group standpoint, and obviously the long-term functionality of the road, it probably does not make the best sense for it to be considered a town road, given the amount of traffic that's on it. So then the next two options are very similar. One is again, let's keep a Schauer Road, but let's make it a county road. Again, if we do that, we'd have the entrance cost, then we'd have to redesign or repave and widen that existing road section. You can see that's almost approximately $192,000. And again, if we throw in a contingency, that's about $243,000. Okay. If we would do that, and then we also can then continue on in terms of vacating the road vacating the northern portion of Schauer Road, that cul-de-sac is probably about $52,000. Then in terms of if we'd use the modified, or we're considering the new corridor, the new road, again, the entrance does not change. We have the existing road section where we do the enhancements, about $68,000. The new road section's about $166,000. And again, we have the contingency, so the total cost there is about $292,000. So there's about a $50,000 difference between those two options in terms of either the existing corridor or the new corridor. So it's pretty close. So if you're looking at making an investment, obviously you don't want to spend more money just because it's more money, but you want to make a long-term investment that's the best for the county and the long-term goals of what you're trying to accomplish. So it might cost more, but if it's a better investment, that's the better way to go. The one thing we do have outlined on the bottom is we were in some discussions, again, it's not finalized, but there was a discussion of should the old Schauer Road, should it be vacated? Should that be remaining as asphalt, or should it be converted into gravel? So that's one of the things that we just put down the cost, should that would be considered. It's not been decided. Again, that's just an option for us to look at. Again, you can see the costs related to that. So the question is, it's asked the cost, but how would we actually pay for it? So it really depends on which way we go in terms of what are the options are for paying for it. If it stays a town facility, then the town would be responsible for all the costs. That's the simplest way of saying it. And the town could apply for some local transportation grants, but those are very limited in terms of what makes it available. If we would go through the plan of making the road under either option a county facility, then it actually opens us up to apply for more funding, and you'll see that presented here. So for example, there's a local road improvement program, which is either a 70-30 or 50-50 split on those costs. We could also try for a federal STP funding, which is an 80-20 split. So we could consider both of those programs should we pursue those, right? And then likewise, one of the things that we have identified as a group is that if you look at all the stakeholders that we have here, we have one of the most popular county assets, and we're looking at trying to not only enhance access, but also trying to enhance the trails and everything within Whitefish Dunes and how the public interacts with some of our assets. So we thought this would also be a good opportunity to consider the Community Foundation grant to help pay for that difference. So ultimately, we have to go through all that, but obviously we're trying to minimize the cost as much as possible in terms of how we proceed moving forward under any of these options. So, and then after that, then the question would be is, well, what's left? Well, what's left would be actually determined by what segments are left. So again, most of that would be required by both towns. But again, in some of these options, obviously, like for example, the intersection and so forth, the county would be participating in some of those costs because obviously part of that is a county facility right where that intersection is. So with that, let's just talk about some next steps. So obviously, we're looking to get some of your questions answered and get some of your input. After this hearing, both towns will want to have some discussions and decide which way they'd like to go. Again, this has been a cooperative working relationship, so I would see that continuing. But again, we need both of those townships to decide which way they'd like to go. And then really, their decisions really trigger then actions by both the DNR and us. So if they are interested in pursuing these options, then we start going through the process of, okay, well, if it's a new corridor, we need to start engaging and having formal discussions on the land swap and making those things actually come into fruition. Likewise, if we are going to make it a county facility, it has to be requested that the county take that on, and the county board actually has to accept it as a county facility. So those are some things or some triggers that need to happen for this to move forward. But it really starts here at the town level for both townships to decide how they'd like to proceed, and then both the county and DNR would react respectively based off those decisions. So with that, I'll keep it short, and I'll return it back to the chair for comments or questions, and I can sit. Thank you.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we'd like, if you would like to speak, to please step up to the podium and tell us who you are and where you're from, if you would. And then the appropriate person here will try to address your question, and we'll gather the input from there. Ask that you not be repetitive, but we want to give you time to express your thoughts. So whoever would like to come up and do so, raise your hand and come on up.
Good evening. First, I want to say thank you, all of you, for coming out on a beautiful Door County evening. My name is Dick Bolden. I've lived all 88 years of my life here in Door County, 50 years here in the town of Sevastopol. I think you're right on with regard to the intersection. I think that definitely needs some attention. I'm concerned about abandoning the existing Sevastopol Town Road in as much as it's a very beautiful scenic drive. We've got scenic drive all the way along our shore. In a lot of places it was interrupted from Whitefish Bay north into past the Whitefish Dunes a number of years ago when the park closed that road off. And that interrupted a very beautiful part of that scenic drive. But now you can come down Glidden Drive, make a little jog around, and you're back on another scenic drive that goes by Cave Point. And I think that's a big benefit for both visitors and residents. And I know my wife and I drive that drive, even though we've lived out here for, like I say, 50 years, we still enjoy driving down that drive. And I see a lot of local people and a lot of visitors driving down through there. Yes, I understand there's a lot of people stop at the park, at Cape Point Park, but it isn't all stopping there. Creating a dead end in a wooded residential area along the Lake Michigan shoreline, I think, is a big mistake. Those of us that have lived in the county for as long as I have know that the weather along the lake shore can be way different than it is inland. And you get a weather event in a residential neighborhood, and you can have a closed road in a hurry. And by having access from both ends, you've got an option of getting out in one direction or the other. It just doesn't make sense to me at all. The existing roadway is, I believe, 60 feet wide, so there's plenty of roadway there that would accommodate a bike lane and also traffic lane. And cost of improving that road, I think, is minimal by comparison to the loss if that road were abandoned. Creating another dead end to service just the town park, I think, is a mistake, because there again, people that are going just to the park are going to miss out on that scenic drive along the lake shore. There's another issue that is somewhat of a pipe dream maybe, but for those of you, and many of the people up here have heard me talk about the lack of boat access along the Door County, the Lake Michigan side of Door County. There is no good boat launch from Sturgeon Bay, Sawyer Park, all the way to Bailey's Harbor. There's a few fair weather ones that are suitable for small craft, but there's nothing that's an all-weather boat launch. That same 30-mile distance on the bay side, on Green Bay side, we've got 9 good all-weather boat launches. So I think it just stands to reason that at some point we should have a boat launch on the lake side. The question becomes, okay, where would that go and how does that affect the subject that we're here tonight? The town of Sturgeon Bay wouldn't be likely to put a boat launch in because it's close to the Sturgeon Bay one. Bailey's Harbor wouldn't be because Bailey's Harbor has a boat launch. So now the town of Jacksonport and the town of Sevastopol are the two townships that may be eligible for such a boat launch to serve that area. But we back out all of the sandy bays because with permitting to be able to dredge and the cost of dredging, Bailey's Harbor just spent $350,000 to dredge again this spring. And permitting is not real readily available through the DNR because of spawning fish and what have you. So the sandy bays, like Whitefish Bay, Lily Bay, Jacksonport, wouldn't be an option. Too much lateral movement of sand. Next issue would be available land / publicly owned land. That section of Whitefish Dunes Park between the park office and Cave Point has got good deep water close to shore. It isn't a real high bluff like Cave Point would be, so it's reasonably accessible. And by abandoning that Sevastopol Town Road, if at such a time that a boat launch would be put in there, we're faced with how are we going to access it? And we go back into the question of disturbance and access. We've got the road there now. I say maintain it and widen it. We've got the width is there, everything is there, and don't shut off a very beautiful scenic drive that residents and non-residents use. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hello, I'm Robert Hall. My wife and I are kind of new, not 88 years, we've been here about 2 years, so the other end of the spectrum. But I agree with the speaker.
Mr. Hall,
that just,
where are you from?
5564 Schauer Road. So we're right on Schauer Road. We're just like the sixth house north of the park. And I agree with the previous speaker. It's a beautiful road. I enjoy going along that road, but the problem is that I've seen, and I've been coming to this road for a long time since my in-laws live right next door to me, is there's a ton of traffic. And as you know, in our presentation, this road was not meant for the amount of traffic. And I love to walk, my wife loves to walk, a lot of the neighbors love to walk, there's people from all over that are walking on Schauer Road. And frankly, it's very dangerous. I can't tell you how many times I've almost been hit. And a lot of times it's because of those curves in the road. I measured the road. Our road ranges on Schauer Road 18 to 18 and a half feet of asphalt. So it's pretty darn narrow. And you get these curves and two cars coming, and it's frankly very dangerous. The road, just the history, that road used to be a dead end. Where we're talking about the turnaround, that used to be many years ago when the road was gravel. It was a dead end. So we kind of have, you know, history that it used to be that, and there probably was a reason they did that. And there are so many pedestrians that use this, and it'd be nice for pedestrians to be able to go along what we're now going to be, you know, this abandoned road that would be within, you know, south of Jacksonport coming into the park. That would be a beautiful place to walk. I'd rather see people walking there than driving there. And I think, I disagree. Most people are not just driving along the scenic road. Most of the people are using their Google Maps and they're saying, how do I get to Bailey's Harbor? And they're in the park and they just do the shortest route, which is, you know, right along my very narrow, windy Schauer Road that I live in. And frankly, most people are not going 25. People are going 35, 45, and there's some, you know, some of these young people, I swear, are going over 50. And they're accelerating around curves, and it is just dangerous. So I think it's, you know, the presentation was great. I think closing off that southern part of Schauer Road, having a turnaround, making that nice, safe entrance into the into Cave Point, and then, you know, having a walking path. I think that's a great plan. Most of the people I talked to on Schauer Road, and I haven't talked to everybody, but I've talked to a lot of people because I'm walking all the time and I like to meet people. Everybody I talk to really thinks this is important. And I think there's, you know, a lot of people probably from Schauer Road here, so I'll give everybody else a chance. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Please. Not a summons? Okay. Should have accepted it. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, my name is Tom Maher. My wife, Virginia, and I reside at Jacksonport for 30 years. We are year-round residents at 5611 Schauer Road. We have 14 acres on the road, 1,125 frontage feet on Schauer Road. Schauer Road, built in the late 80s or early 90s. It's an 18-foot wide asphalt road with a 50-foot right-of-way owned by the town of Jacksonport. Today, the mile-long road is occupied by a total of 31 single-family residences. Of those 31 residences, 10 of the 31 houses are occupied year-round. As a feeder road from the north and an exit road from the south of Cape Point Park, the counter was placed on the road by George Pinney 5 to 7 years ago, and he recorded 400,000 cars traveling on Schauer Road in a 6-month period. Assistant Chief Pat McCarty and I had a conversation earlier in the year. He estimated at that point in time that 1.2 million people travel Schauer Road in 2023. The road is not designed, nor can its residential character accommodate 1.2 million people total. We have experienced speeders creating a conflict between walkers, some with children and/or dogs, and non-resident drivers causing close calls with people on the road on foot and sightseeing, inattentive, non-resident tourist drivers. As was pointed out, many of them are confused just by the park and the road situation. The equitable ratio of 10 permanent residents and 1.2 million road travelers are not obeying the 25-mile speed limit signs with no speed enforcement on an insignificant road is unacceptable and needs to change before there is, and you will be responsible for, a fatal occurrence. Of the 19 Door County municipalities, Jacksonport was the greatest total equalized value percentage change from 23 to 24. A 19.7 increase, more than 3% above the next closest municipality and 10% above the total average Door County percentage change in this particular year. This enormous increase in taxes should allow Jacksonport to make improvements such as closing and updating Schauer Road in Jacksonport. It's outrageous for 10 permanent year-round residents to have to put up with 1.2 million people on an undersized road. With this 19.7% rise in value and property tax income, I respectfully request that the supervisors of Jacksonport, who represent the permanent residents, and should correct Schauer Road inequity of residents to the travelers now and close the road at the south end, leave the already existing turnaround at the south end, and make Schauer Road a signed, quote, no outlet, end of quote, road at the north. This comment is very similar to what is proposed by the county. Thank you.
Thank you much. Anyone else wishing to speak?
Hi, I'm Shelley Bath, and we live on Rip Road. My question is, how long would the closed segment of Schauer Road be? Does anyone know?
You mean the actual physical
Yeah,
length?
just about how long. I just want to know.
Thad, you might know, I don't know. The portion from the park up to Jacksonport?
Approximately.
Half a mile at most?
Wait, what's? From the Jacksonport line to Cape Point Park is approximately a quarter mile.
Oh,
Okay.
that's it? Oh,
It's not much.
no, it's not. Well, I just want to say that my husband and I both support closing, both, and making the roundabout or whatever, cul-de-sac, whatever it is. We think that's a great idea, as I think it would open it up for people to hike and kind of see it in a different way. When we've driven in there, we've experienced the same thing as other people. Cars going too fast, and I mean, it's almost dangerous if you're walking alongside. So we really support option 3. So
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comment. Surely there's a couple more people that have an opinion? Go ahead, Gwen.
Thank you, Chairman Wolfel and Chairman Wilson and Mr. Pavich. I strongly support the need to correct that intersection at the entrance at the junction of Cape Point Road and Whitefish Dunes Park and the rest of Cape Drive. Oh, I'm sorry, 5343 South Lake Road. I apologize. I have just 3 questions. One, I'm curious about the use of one bike lane on one side of a 2-lane road. If that's supposed to be a multi-directional bike lane, you would have bicyclers going on the wrong side of the driving part of the road. The second question is, on behalf of the snowplow people, I would request that the turnaround at the south end of the closed-off Schauer Road be wide enough for a plow to easily go around that circle, or that half circle. And my final question has to do with the funding. After all grants have been obtained, how is that divided between the county, the town of Jacksonport, and the town of Sevastopol? Thank you.
All right, Thad Ash, Door County Highway Commissioner. I can answer the first couple pretty easily for you.
Okay.
As presented on the options and the prices or the costs that were listed there, on the drawing itself, it does show a bike lane on one side. Those costs do have a bike lane on both sides.
Oh,
because
okay.
legally, to ride bikes, you have to ride with traffic.
Yeah.
So those costs, the first option is the 20-foot town road brought to town spec. As Dan said, that road was 18 feet wide, 18 and a half when we redid it. We had 1-foot shoulders because we needed to stay a foot off of what, at that time, the state parks considered right-of-way. So that first option is to bring the road to a 20-foot travel surface and a 4-foot bike lane on both sides with a 3-foot shoulder.
Okay.
The second option is to bring the existing road to a 22-foot wide road with a 4-foot bike lane on each side and a 3-foot gravel shoulder.
Okay.
The third option has, it's modified slightly from the plan, but the cost includes a 4-foot bike lane on both sides of the entrance, and then the one lane would cross over the entrance road and go onto the old Schauer Road, and which is an 18-foot road which they could walk and bike in both directions on that road.
No cars.
No cars.
Okay. Thank you.
Correct.
Yeah, I think what was misleading there was
Oh.
on the one slide, it showed a 2-foot bike lane.
Right.
Or excuse me, a 4 on one side.
Right, but all those costs
I knew they
include
were in there.
that I have figured a 4-foot bike lane on both sides.
That was updated.
Yeah. No, that was my fault. The radius turnaround, that radius has been designed to handle school buses, garbage trucks, snow plows, that type of vehicle, and it's made for that, so traffic can go each way around it. So it is considered a double-lane road.
Okay. Thank you.
As far as the funding of what's left after the funding is got, I'm going to step out on a limb here and say that's to become decided upon at a later date from now. I don't want to step on anybody's toes or make anybody's promises, but I guess when we get that far, we'll
TBD.
decide that. Correct.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bill?
Good evening. I'm Bill Schuster. I live on 4095 Glidden Drive. At a previous time in my life, I was involved in early conversations about Cave Point and what to do with traffic. I once worked for the county. And that was when decisions were being made on whether to build parking lots and what size of parking lot. And the decision makers at the county were being told by professionals, don't build a big parking lot without thinking about usage, overusage. And the decision was made to go ahead and build big parking lots. The reason I tell that story is that it's really a misused, mismanaged park because of those decisions. And when I look at this, various types of the plans will help a lot with the misuse and overuse and such.
But the county bears a greater responsibility for previous decisions, and that's where it comes to the money. And I just object to the town having to have a significant, large responsibility for this project. And again, I can tinker with ideas on the project, and you've got good ideas, but it's not the town's fault. It's not the town's overall responsibility. They can be partners, but not, and I don't, I've been in public things for a long time. I know the newspaper isn't exactly right. So I don't know the 300,000 or whatever. But the county needs to step up, whether the state can come in on that too, and take the financial responsibility for the errors that were made in the past by the decision makers not to listen to the professionals who were strongly recommending that you look at usage. To that end also, as you're going through this plan, step away from, make sure you don't go too far down the road of accommodating more and more and more usage. I think you're going that direction. I applaud that. I hope like hell there isn't a plan for another parking lot as we get better access or whatever. But lastly, or I guess just a summary, it's not the town's responsibility to pay for the county's decisions 10, 15 years ago.
Thank you, Bill.
Evening, John Swanson, 4395 Glidden Drive. My wife and I bike frequently, and we've heard about talkers on Schauer Road. And we bike down from Glidden Drive, down WD, Clark Lake Road, down through Schauer Road, past Cape Point, 2 or 3 times a week all summer long. I can't tell you what a safety issue it is, how many times we've almost gotten hit on those curvy roads on Schauer Road, people coming around curves swinging way too widely against us in traffic, people trying to pass us on the roads, slow bikers, and pushing us off to the side of the road. If we talk about biking, remember we have 2 bike concessionaires up in Jacksonport. And there's a ton of bikers on e-bikes now coming down through these roads. People on Schauer Road know that, down through the park and going through Cape Point. There's a Door County Century Ride the weekend after Labor Day. And there's 3,000 bikers that come to Cave Point that one single day biking on Schauer Road. Now, it's a one-time incident, I understand. The Sheriff's Department's certainly well aware of that problem. But unfortunately, those bikers are not very considerate. They're riding 3 or 4 abreast on that road with cars coming around. So it's a significant safety problem. So I 100% advocate straightening that road out, having a wider bike lane. At least for us bikers, it would make a huge safety factor for us.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Please.
Dan Higgins, 5555 Schauer Road. I like the option 1 with the cul-de-sac and a sign at the beginning on the south end or the north end that says keep the bicycles and the electric bikes off that road. And the subways, we got them subways or suckways or whatever they call them, all over the road. They don't go single file, they actually give them tours down the middle of the road. So when you drive, you gotta wait. In fact, a couple of years ago, I almost had a head-on collision on one of the curves because somebody was passing the subways on a curve and I was going south at the same time. So I don't know why we got subways and those electric bikes. They're great, but you got 50 people on them sometimes and they take them down to the park and it's like the road's theirs. So you can do, I like the idea of closing it. It was closed years ago when I first moved up here, and as far as the mistake of making a bigger parking lot. The reason he had to do it is because I live on Schauer Road. They'd park from the park just way all the way to the Sevastopol property line. And if you know where it is, that's a lot of cars, and there's no way coming through. I've already come through and somebody jackknifed pulling a trailer down that road. And then somebody said, well, you gotta go around. And I go, I ain't going anywhere. You don't do a U-turn with pulling a camper in the middle of that little road. So that's just my 2 cents. All right.
You'll be happy to
Great
know
day.
that, you'll be happy to know that Segway is going out of business, so eventually, regardless of what we do, in 20 years, they'll disappear.
Yeah, but until then, and what about all the electric bicycles?
I'm with you.
Yeah, so either that or put a cop on the road and start giving out tickets to people that don't know the rules of the road. You give them to speeders, correct? All right. Have a
Thank
nice
you.
day.
Hi, I'm Susan Toth. I'm on Schauer Road 25570. And I have to say that I think this is a great plan. I too am concerned about the traffic going through. And even though I'm not a permanent resident on Schauer Road, we're retired. We live there all year. I should change my permanent residency, but I don't. But we're there the whole time. The traffic concerns are there. I think shutting down Schauer Road like it was before is a great idea. I lived there when it was shut, so I know what it limits, but it we'll still have the segways, Dan, sorry. We'll still have the segways, we'll still have the e-bikes, but maybe not the traffic, not the tour buses. It's too much. So, and if we can get the rescue crews there faster, easier, and not have to go through all those curves, and the loss of life is certainly a concern. So I'm all for option 3, I think you want, Dan. 3. So I know you said 1, but I'm thinking he meant.
I'm sorry, I did not.
Anyway, thank you, that's all.
Thank you.
And again, thank you guys for doing this. I know how much work goes into it. I really appreciate you just looking at the problem and coming up with a solution. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Janet Slater. I'm at 5502 Schauer Road. So we are the first home north of Cape Point Park. I'm fully in support of closing the road. What I wanted to ask about is the turnaround itself. Seeing the pictures tonight for the first time, it's almost on top of our home. And so I'm wondering how you determine the spacing of that from a locational standpoint. I looked at the maps for the DNR of that area, and it showed that they're in the short area close to the border, that there's a wetland area that's marked in the DNR maps. And I wondered if we could consider moving that turnaround just a little bit further into the park, so it's not, a big sea of cement right across the street. And I'm curious what the approval process will be for the design. If somebody could share with me, who's designing it, and what the approval process is, and then what the any public input that's there's an opportunity for going forward. Thank you.
Well, there's a lot of questions in there. It all starts with the town of Sevastopol in terms of what action we take on the portion, most specifically from the park down to WD. Obviously, we're in support of making changes to the north section, but that'll have to be a work effort between Jacksonport, Tom, myself, our respective boards to understand that. I can't address, I can tell you, having been on Cottage Road, that the turnaround that is there off of Fish Creek is a terrific, easy-to-use, navigate turnaround. So I'm sure that whoever designs it will more than plenty of space to provide easy vehicle access turnaround. I don't remember, Thad, perhaps you do, where where we actually were thinking that was going to end up, on what side of the street and so on and so forth.
Well, if Aaron and Sarah won't listen real close, that was just a quick design thrown in there to show what it could look like. It's going to come down to how much, as proposed right now, how much property the park is willing to let us go into. We were trying not to go into the park too deep and you know, disturb any more of the green space than had to. It probably shows the yellow part probably going a little bit far up the road, but basically it would be adding on to the existing asphalt that's in that partial turnaround now, and then to make it flow so that you could go in, make a nice turn, and come back out. Now, the depth of that, I guess, is to be determined. It could be looked at a little further. Again, it has to do with property swap. Some costs would certainly dictate that. And at this point, our conceptual drawings have been done by Stantec. And I guess once a decision is made as to what we're going to do, or who's going to do it, we'll determine who will do the engineering on it. But at this point, wager or guess, it's probably going to be Stantec at this point, unless there's opposition.
Okay. I'm sure the DNR is more than willing to give us the necessary turf, because we would be giving up the most valuable road the entire portion of the county. So that's work to be done yet, but we've had some very good conversations. I wish we'd had those conversations in 2014. We wouldn't be here today, but it doesn't always work that way. Yes, sir.
Paul Anschutz, Sturgeon Bay. I have a note, though, from Peter Bordeaux that lives on Bark Road. I got a hold of him in Switzerland. He was kind enough to get back to me. I'd like to read a segment of his email if the town might not have got it, and there's a lot of people in this room probably that didn't get it. Again, Peter lives in Switzerland, avid cyclist. I would be very disappointed if, for example, the existing road surface were replaced by a sand or gravel bike trail, such as exists in Whitefish Dune State Park currently. Although gravel bike trails have their place, my sense is that the majority of cyclists who currently enjoy riding through Cape Point County Park could no longer be able to safely ride on such a trail. I also note that the 3 annual organized 100-mile cycling events in Door County all go through along Schauer Road and through Cape Point County Park. And having joined all 3 rides this past year, I can attest that that stretch is one of the highlights of road cycling in the entire county. It would be a shame to lose it. Myself, I'd like to thank you all for coming, and the town and the people for county for finally taking this on, because it's a problem that we as a county need to address for our visitors and our locals alike. And I would like to attest to what Peter says from Switzerland, that this segment of road, you could be leaders in the county and show some of the most desirable multimodal, I'll call it. Everybody calls it bike. It's a multimodal trail. And as a county, as a partnership with the towns, working together would be fabulous, because as I read in the Green Fund's vision for cycling, they have all the different communities, what they look for in the future. And Jacksonport really has no plan, it says, as of last year. And they'd like to sometime maybe put a bike lane on WD. Well, we would eliminate the cost of a huge segment, people, of adding a bike lane to WD if we agree to using Schauer Road as a true multimodal path into Cape Point County Park and continuing through to the intersection that I never gave it any thought. They're right. it is a shit show intersection, pardon my language, you know, I mean, it needs to be fixed, but I'm glad that they're finally looking at it, and I'm glad that Peter could respond, and I also have a letter from the gentleman that bought the house alongside of the county, or the town park in Jacksonport. They're all in favor of it too, so rock and roll.
Hello, my name is Dennis Kepchar. My wife and I live at 5604 Schauer Road, and one of the 10 permanent residents Tom Maher talked about. And want to thank you all for a thoughtful plan, and want to voice our support for option 3.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Now would be a perfect time. All right. You're going to be limited to 20 minutes.
I wasn't that long
Oh,
last time.
just
Okay, Dan
set the
Higgins,
stage.
5555 Schauer Road. As far as the bicycle races and stuff, that's great. They raise money. The only problem is, once you close the road, we won't have the problem because when you drive through it, the bicyclers all stand in the middle of the road. And my wife always gets mad at me because I always want to stop and explain to them the rules. And she says, just keep going. So, put a big sign up at the park that says, this is a road, it's not a path. But you do whatever you want. All right? Thank
Sounds
you.
good, thank you. All right, last call. Anyone else wishing to speak? You're limited to 20 minutes too.
Dick Baldwin, Sevastopol. I hear people talking about traffic conditions and bikes and pedestrians and so on. But keep in mind, if the bicycle trails are there on both sides, those also can be used for pedestrians. So I think that improving the existing roadway, widening it and providing those bike trails would answer a lot of the questions. And if it were a county road, law enforcement would be available.
All right. Oh, hold it.
I just wanted to add, Janet Slater, that I should have said thank you. Thank you for answering my concern about there being a turnaround. And I really appreciate that. I was offering some enhancements to that, but really the most important thing is that you listened, you heard the concern, and I really appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome, thank you. All right, anybody else? All right, Thad has a couple moments. You're going to be limited to 20 minutes. I'm stuck on that number. All right, that's good.
Okay, I'm Thad Ash, Door County Highway Commissioner. I live at 3417 Grandin Road, Town of Nassau. I would like, in Bill's comments, he's absolutely right. In 2014, there wasn't a lot of cooperation on when the road was redone. At that time, there was, we did not have the engagement of the state parks to help improve that roadway to what we needed. We were limited by space. I'm here to tell everyone who's here today and who's going to watch this on TV that the DNR, Whitefish Dune State Park, and the DNR system as a whole has been totally on board and cooperative and assisting in all the decisions and willing to help us make this a safer thing. I'd just like to point that out, that through our work group, it hasn't been that way in the past, but I really applaud the two DNR people who are here from Whitefish Bay State Park, and to let you know that the state DNR and state park system has been real cooperative and real easy to work with, and I'm happy to, wherever direction this takes, to have them as part of this work group and help make decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Thad. All right, I'll limit myself to 20 minutes. We did get some feedback, written feedback. Some of you heard some of it tonight. I will tell you there are 3 things I won't do with the written feedback, so that you can rest easy tonight. It will not be a toll road, all right? So we'll take that off the table. We're not going to put up a half dozen limestone boulders and close the road, so that's off the table. And this one really surprised me. No, we will not be limiting kayaking and swimming at Cape Point County Park. I don't know how that fixes things, but no, that's not an option either. So obviously the town, we appreciate your coming out tonight and expressing your concerns. There's obviously issues here that we need to address, and as a town, we will attempt to do that starting on Monday night at our board meeting to try and deliberate and figure out what the best course of action. We have every intention of using every funding resource out there because the cost of this road, even if split, would consume about 50% or more of our town budget for road construction. And there are some roads besides this that need repair. So we're going to try and be judicious with our funding. So I have nothing other than to thank you. I appreciate your coming out tonight, and we'll take your input into consideration, and you'll hear, I'm sure you'll hear through the paper. If nothing else, Deb Fitzgerald with the Pulse does a great job, so I'm sure she's already writing half the article. So thank you much. Thank all of the stakeholders for coming tonight. We appreciate that.
Would it be premature?